Quality Carriers is excited to launch our new interview series, the QC Quick Chat. I'm your host today, Ara Kerr, Vice President of Driver Services and Marketing. I'm so excited to bring to you conversations with QC leaders, professional drivers, and employees. Without further delay, we'll ask our first guest to introduce himself, your name, your title, how long you've been in transportation, and how long you've been with Quality Carriers.
Okay, so I'm Randy Strutz. I'm the president of Quality Carriers. I've been in transportation for about a little over 20 years. Been with QC since 2010, and I've served as the president since 2012.
Okay, so one of the things we like to do with QC Quick Chat is just ask a quick icebreaker. So the icebreaker today, Randy, is going to be, if you were a driver, what lane would you choose and why?
It would be easy. I would choose the lane that I can make the most money on. So really simple. So it's going to vary for driver what their preferences are. You know, if you want to maximize money and earnings, most likely you're going to run the system. If you want the convenience of more home time, you're probably going to do more local and regional work. So it's really up to the driver. But for me, it would be chasing the dollars.
Perfect. So. Great. Thank you. So now let's get into the questions. As a part of this series, we poll our social media community and we ask them, what do you want to hear from our guests? So our community voted, Randy, and the community question is, what is your opinion of the overall state of the trucking industry as a whole?
That's a great question. And right now, it's not an easy answer. And the reason is that after we went through the pandemic for 2+ years, where everything was just absolutely crazy, no supply and infinite demand, we could kind of pick and choose what we wanted to do. Things have slowed down a lot, especially in general trucking, like dry van and LTL, not as much in bulk, but a little bit. So it's put a lot of pressure on the industry. So what I would say is the overall trucking industry is struggling, but the segment that we're in is still pretty strong. And if you're going to be in trucking, really the place to be is in bulk trucking, especially chemical. It's the most resilient, the most recession-proof, and it's really the most stable.
Okay, thank you. So our next question is, can you describe the relationship between QC and CSX and how we're able to leverage that partnership for our customers and our drivers, really?
Yep. So when CSX purchased Quality Carriers, which was effective July 1st of 2021, the premise was, how can we help them bring more revenue to the railroads? That's the ultimate goal. And what they saw was, number one, they saw us as the leader in the industry. Number two, they saw us as, an extremely safe carrier that promotes that, number one, first and foremost, for drivers, for mechanics, and those align well with their culture. So really what they want is, and they've asked us, is how can we bring more revenue to the railroads? And that's what we've started to do with some new products that we might talk about in a second or so. And so what it's given us is we're probably the most well-capitalized carrier now in the industry because CSX is an extraordinarily successful and well-run railroad that has enormous financial resources. So it gives us options that really most of our competitors don't have. It allows us to invest in new products, invest in new equipment, invest in new locations that, quite frankly, would have been very, very difficult to do without CSX. So it's really been great for us. And then we look for our customers as we talk about new products for them. It gives them new alternatives. And for drivers, that more and more drivers want to be home at night, it gives us more local opportunities for drivers. So I think it's really a win all around.
And has an acquisition like this, has it been attempted before? So has there ever been, a railroad transportation company that's tried to acquire a trucking company?
Yeah, it has happened at least once, to my knowledge, a few years back with kind of a long haul LTL type company that was purchased by one of the railroads. That didn't go very well, but I think it was not well understood what the strategy was. And I think in this case, it's a bit different because the strategy was a little bit narrower, meaning let's get more chemicals onto the railroad. There's a specific need for that. And I think we're starting to prove out that it's a success.
Perfect, okay. Thank you. So as you mentioned, we did introduce a new and very exciting product to the market in 2022. Can you tell us in the audience a little bit more about
Sure.
our domestic intermodal ISO tanks?
Yeah, so there's a lot of good things happening. So when CSX worked with us on the potential acquisition, we talked about how would we grow revenue for CSX. And for us, the answer was a kind of an industry groundbreaking new intermodal product. And that's what we've designed. So our new 20-foot domestic intermodal product was introduced late September of 22. We wanted to do it earlier, but because of the pandemic, there was a lot of equipment shortages and delays. But nevertheless, we finally got the product. We started receiving them. We moved our first load in September of last year, and now we're ramping it up. We have around 200 units in inventory. It should be in the 450 units by the end of this year, growing to at least 1,000 units. And what it's done for customers is really simple. It's taken freight off the highway on longer haul moves that provides a cost savings for customers because it's more efficient on the railroad. And because of the incredible need for carbon improvements, green initiatives, it's more fuel efficient. So for customers, they really like it. It's always a little slow to get chemical customers to adopt something. But as we've done it, every customer that we've tried so far, about a dozen, have been delighted with the product. It's just trying to get more and more acclimated to the new product. And we're really excited about it. And one other really exciting piece of news is we just received on Friday of last week, acknowledgement of our patent application has been approved for the product. So we're really excited about that as well.
Awesome. So the railroad only goes so far. So once those ISO tanks are on the railroad and they reach their max transportation point, what happens after that?
Yeah, so the way the product moves, if I take an example, like one of our initial customers was out of St. Louis going to New Jersey. Our local driver in St. Louis will take the equipment, the ISO tank is on a chassis, will go into the customer for loading, and then rather than drive to New Jersey, that driver will drive to the rail ramp in the St. Louis area. The ISO unit will be taken off the chassis, put on the train, and then in about 35 to 40 hours, it'll be at destination in New Jersey. And we'll have another local driver pick it up with another chassis. It'll get loaded onto the chassis and then delivered locally, and he'll return to his yard. So the advantage is both drivers are home at night, number one. Number two, it's more cost effective for the customer. Number three, it reduces their carbon footprint, again, because the train is more efficient for fuel. And I would say probably the last thing is that when it's all said and done, the product itself performs extraordinarily well, very comparable to a truck, plus maybe 1 day of service, okay? So it's really a win all around.
Are there any products that we can carry on ISO tank that maybe our regular chemical tankers can't carry? Can you tell us a little bit about the products that we'll haul?
Yeah, so when it comes to the products we're moving with ISO tanks, the way to think about it is the majority of our road fleet, our over-the-road fleet, are general chemical tankers, okay? We also have a lot of specialized that move acids and other, unique products. All of our intermodal fleet initially will be general freight movements of chemicals, so standard trailers. What that means is we can haul hazmat and non-hazmat, but at this point, it won't be any type of product that requires a lining or is an extraordinarily heavy product. Okay. That's about the only restrictions right now. There's a few others, but that's probably, the lion's share of our product will be able to move on ISO tanks. But there will be some segments that can't move on ISO tanks either because of rail restrictions or weight restrictions.
Okay. So as our president, I'm sure you're focused on growth of the company, and we just received some really exciting news here recently. We have a new location. Can you tell us where that location is and a little bit more about the services that will be offered from that new location?
Yeah, so when we look at the map to try to figure out where can we grow as far as our geographic footprint, it's really hard to find places because we're pretty much everywhere. We're throughout the West Coast, we're in the Gulf, we're in the Southeast, the Northeast, the Midwest, Canada, Mexico. There's really not a lot of spots. But the one spot that we didn't have a presence was in Jacksonville, Florida, okay? And I think that might be near and dear to you as your home. But Jacksonville was a spot, it's a significant transportation location. There's a lot of port activity there. a lot of movement of chemicals in and out of that market up the I-95 corridor, and we just felt we needed to be there. And it's only coincidental that happens to be where CSX is headquartered. They have a lot of property in the area, so we were able to work out a deal to kind of move into one of their facilities to make it a little bit more cost effective for us to start up the terminal. So yeah, so we're very excited, and it'll handle anything that any other terminal can do. But we'll have a special focus on intermodal, okay? But as well as over-the-road chemical transportation, especially along the I-95 corridor.
I was going to ask, was there any strategic alignment there so we can be a little closer to CSX? But you already answered that.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, and our last question, as we move into Q2, what are some of the most exciting things that you're looking forward to towards the tail end of 2023?
Yeah, so this year is it has a lot of uncertainty. If you just turn on the news every day, there's all the craziness, what's happened with banks, what's happened with interest rates, what's happened with inflation. So there's a lot of hesitancy in the marketplace. I look at that as good for us because as the leader, we can take advantage of that. We can take advantage of it by opening new locations, ramping up new products, getting more equipment in, especially on the truck side, the tractor side. And so for us, it's really kind of, I would say, weathering the storm a little bit and being stronger over the next 3 or 4 months when the market gets more demand intensive, which it inevitably will do. And then I would say for us, the most exciting part is the ramp up of our intermodal products. Mm-hmm. As we get more equipment coming in from South Africa into the Port of Charleston, our maintenance team is doing a phenomenal job prepping the equipment and getting it into the right markets. We probably have 15 or 20 customers in various test modes right now in the equipment, and we're just waiting for it to kind of, the floodgates to open for us to see the higher volumes that we know will come. So that's probably the most exciting thing for the next quarter or two.
Okay, so you mentioned South Africa. Mm-hmm. Can you share with us a little bit how that relationship works and what they do for us? Because that's a long way from Jacksonville. It's a long way from Tampa. So how did we get all the way to South Africa to have our equipment developed and created?
Yeah. So when we conceived of the idea of this new ISO tank with some industry changing features that were the basis of our patent, we had to find somebody that could make it. And there's only a few makers of ISO tanks in the world. And when we looked into it, there was really only one choice, and that was a company called Welfit Adi, been around well over 100 years. One of the probably the highest quality manufacturer of ISO tanks. They make a lot of specialized equipment. That's what this is. So for us, it became a very simple choice, and they have done a phenomenal job on taking the design concepts, putting it into blueprints, putting it into manufacturing, putting it into test, and then delivering the product to us. And the added benefit is that a few of us had a chance to go over and visit them and see the incredible culture of South Africa, and even go on a safari or two. So that was even one of the highlights, I would say, of the last couple of years for me. So
that's awesome to hear. Well, we thank you so much for joining us for our quick chat, and thank you guys to our audience out there that had a time to stop by and have a quick chat with QC. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.